Well, the problem card in the white octagon space is about as on the nose as it gets. So let's move on to the short-term solution card. I believe this card is meant to be a reminder that you have already invested quite a bit of time and effort into becoming a chemist, and new endeavors would start you off at square one. This is not meant as a discouragement, merely a reminder. Seeking your passion is a noble task, a vital one even. However, it is not an easy one. If we look to the long-term slot, we see Grover rocking out on the guitar. He is rocking out, smiling, with carefree abandon. Now I'm looking at the card, and I'm not seeing big piles of money or a mansion made of caviar. Grover's not seeing those things either, but that's because his eyes are closed. Grover didn't get the symbols of status or success. Instead, he got what he wanted. He seems pretty happy about that. So, less octagon, more rocking on. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is the 12 of Doodlebugs, and the short term is the 10 of Fruits. I feel this is a case of showing us a before and after scenario. You see, the Doodlebugs are arranged in a way where their differences create a sense of harmony. Whereas on the 10 card, while every fruit is allowed to sort of shine on its own and you can see its individual merits, you wouldn't exactly combine them all into a fruit salad. I believe this is saying that while individual recognition may be sweet and delicious, it may disrupt the harmony of the group. Let's move to the long-term solution card. Elmo playing with a soccer ball. Elmo is playing a two-player game, and Elmo's gaze is focused on the hexagon, a sign of life and harmony. But a soccer ball also contains dark pentagons, which are a sign of ambiguous mystery. I believe the message is this: life is not without risks, and we should never fear going for the things that we want. For a calculated risk to occur, you must focus on the big picture. But in the end, the decision is yours. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is represented by the red triangle, possibly a sign that your thoughts linger on your feelings. But see, here's the thing. Thoughts are thoughts, and feelings are feelings. And your brain doesn't necessarily have all the information it needs to advise the heart. Which is probably why the short-term card is a gray pentagon. Now here's where it gets interesting. When we look to the future, we see many pentagons. But these ones appear open to Bert. Possibly because Bert has projected his love of pigeons upon the universe. Now it should be noted that only one of the pigeons is returning that love back to Bert. Now Bert had to build a lot of birdhouses to get there. And the funny thing about just doing stuff a lot is eventually you get pretty good at it. So here's what I take away from this. If you're looking for a way to get your thoughts on board, then feed them this logic. The worst thing that can happen if you do is still better than the best thing that can happen if you don't. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem and long-term solution cards are crying out to me as a sort of before and after. So let's start our analysis with the short-term solution card, the 8 of Bats. Taking flight can indeed be a scary thing to do. But the thing with bats is that we've sort of thrust our expectations of spookiness upon bats. So it's important not to let anecdotes and media interpretations affect our willingness to try. Now I believe the shape cards may represent the complexion of your worldview. The circle can represent, among other things, eternity, while the hexagon is typically a sign of life. I interpret this as a sign that flight will give you the opportunity to narrow the scope of your understandings. And of course, green is a color of growth. It is tempting to embrace the safety of innocence. But the sooner we take that first scary flight, the sooner we gain the experiences to help us truly live. You know, it is the 8 of Bats. You don't necessarily have to do it alone. Sesamerot has spoken. Oof, ask vague questions, get vague answers, I suppose. I believe that when I look to the problem card, I am seeing a blank canvas. Sometimes as an artist, I will sit there and I will stare at a blank canvas because I want to draw, but I can't think of what I want to draw. When this happens, I need to seek inspiration. But I'm not going to be inspired by staring at a blank canvas. I got to get out into the world. Maybe that's what the 15 of Trucks is all about. I believe it's time for you to go out into the world and experience life and see what it is about life that speaks to you. Now here's where the 16 of Feathers comes in. A feather is a leaving, an evidence that the bird was there. So if indeed the Sesamerot is suggesting some direction for you, I believe it is this. Go have a journey, gain experience, and then fill your canvas to share that experience with others. The Sesamerot has spoken. Your problem card is the 4 of Beanies. Imagine you are in a place where there are many signs saying headwear must be worn at all times. You put on the only headwear that comes to mind, a beanie, and then get cracked in the head with a brick because you are at a construction site. Which brings us to the book in the short-term solution space. The thing with signs is that they're typically context-specific, and it may be time for you to read the whole story. It is possible that you are where you are supposed to be at this time for a very specific reason, and that reason could be to learn from the most valuable teller of tales there is, experience. Which leads us to the long-term solution card, the FAR card. Let's say you're trying to get from Buffalo to Long Island. The signs may say you need to be in Albany, but it's not a destination, it's a waypoint. Get out of the car, stretch your legs, have a nosh. Maybe take in the Museum of Art and History, and then continue your journey. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is Rosita holding a tomato. Perhaps a sign that what you're looking for is something healthy and nourishing. This does seem to run in contrast with the short-term solution card, which is Cookie Monster holding 2 circles. Now, it is true that Rosita is offering a round treat, and it is also true that Cookie Monster is appearing on the circle card and wearing a red bandana. There are similarities there, if we want to see them. But if we are being honest about ourselves, we know why he's not called the Tomato Monster. I believe this is a sign that in order for reconciliation to truly happen, you will want to be clear on what your father is expecting to get out of the deal. The long-term solution card is Mumford holding a rabbit. I feel this is a sign of optimism. The magic can still happen, but there is still risk of deception. So be cautious until you know for sure if it's trick or treat. The Sesamerot has spoken. Problem card is represented by a green rhombus. I believe this represents an ideal that you have in your mind's eye. Now, I think it's fascinating that the short and long-term cards are 8 and then 9. But here's something that's even more interesting. None of the triangles in the 8 are the same shade of color as the mind's eye ideal. Even the green ones aren't quite green enough. But then we get to number 9. Not only is the cape the right shade of green, but he's got a pointy top bit and a sort of pointy bottom bit. It's not an exact match, but it's closer than any of the other ones. And that's what counts. If you see what I did there. Now, the formation of an ideal comes from many places, not least of which from your past. Your intuition got you out of trouble. Your intuition kept you away from these 8 jokers. And number 9 seems real eager to at least interview for the job. Now, you don't have to rush the interview process. Your intuition is sharp. Learn to trust it where it counts. The Sesamerot has spoken. Your problem card is the one of teddy bears. This may be a sign that you are seeking independence to escape being perceived as childish. This is a healthy attitude, as it shows an earnest desire to grow. Your short-term solution is the quilt. A quilt is made when you take individual patches of fabric and sew them together into one beautiful whole. This could literally be a sign of folks coming together so they can all cover rent together. Get it? Cover because quilts and blankets. You get it. Now, I believe the 4 of goldfish is a sign of caution. These 4 goldfish have so much in common, and it is clear that they are happy being together. I believe this is because they have all carefully managed their own personal space. Set and maintain clear boundaries, because if one of you starts trying to get into the other one's goldfish bowl, you're just going to get a quilt all wet. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is the 10 of soccer balls. Soccer balls consist of light hexagons and dark pentagons. So while they represent a fullness and completeness of the life experience, 10 in a row could get a little samey. The short-term solution card is the 18 of carrots. It's a card that speaks to the concept of growth and nourishment. Now, on the flip side of nourishment is hunger, and hunger is a terrific motivator. So I believe this is a sign to seek your motivation from growth. Don't just look for change, become the change. And let the needs and requirements of that change be what guides your forward path. The long-term solution card is a rainbow, a beautiful sign of variety. I believe this is a sign that you need to look outside of your routine for inspiration. So try this. Next time you're at the supermarket, go to the magazine rack. Close your eyes, pick 3 magazines at random. Buy them, read them, see what happens. The Sesamerot has spoken. I think I want to start this reading with the center card, the 8 of triangles. I believe this card represents the very concept of your feelings. Your thoughts linger on a kaleidoscope of memories and emotions. They're vivid, they're part of you, they made you who you are. So the good news is you already have within you everything you need. And I think that's why the problem card is the piano. Think of the 8 of triangles as the song that Grover is trying to sing, and the triangle represents the portion of their memories. Notice that the last triangle has yellow and red in it, and it's represented as a single complex object rather than a smattering of primary ones. So my advice is read the room, because you may both hold those memories in a different way. In short, if you're going to do this concerto, you better be real clear what's on her sheet music, and be absolutely sure it's going to be a duet. The Sesamerot has spoken. Your problem card is the 6 of birds. I believe this reflects your desire to be part of birds of a feather who flock together. I said flock. Now, when we looked at the short-term solution card, I see something interesting. I see first and foremost recognition of the differences you have between you and your flock. However, I also see the ducky gazing upon the 6 of birds with affection. I mean, it's not unreasonable. There's a reason people become friends. Which brings us to Elmo in the hexagon spot. The hexagon is a sign of life and harmony, and Elmo is playing a two-player game. This could be a sign of caution. You see, while Elmo is focused on the abstract of the big picture, he's not acknowledging the role played by those around him. In the multiplayer game of soccer, players have different plumages to represent different roles in the same game. Sometimes that role is to challenge us. The game would be a lot less fun if everybody was on the same team. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is represented by the Count holding up the number 9. Now the Count likes to count things, so he's probably incredibly confused that he only has one thing to count, but he's supposed to be demonstrating the number 9. I take that as a sign that everything about this situation is wrong. The short-term solution is Snuffleupagus wearing socks. On his feet, where they belong. I believe I can trust you to deduce the significance of that. The long-term solution card is the blue triangle. The triangle is a symbol of thought. Now sometimes when my daughter acts out, we send her to timeout. This is not a punishment. This is meant more as an opportunity to help her chill out, to prepare herself mentally and emotionally for learning. So I think the message here is, go sit in the corner and think about what you've done. Because most of us stopped doing Kansas log jams by the 5th grade. The Sesamerot has spoken. I believe the pink octagon in the problem space provides us with a definitive yes. Love is indeed a very complex thing. But then again, so is the human body. Smartphones are another good example. And those are both designed to continue working as intended without you having to put too much thought into them. Which leads us to the short-term solution card, Barkley looking at his dish. Now, Barkley's not what you'd call the most eloquent communicator. And yet he is clearly sending a signal to the universe that he would like some food in his dish. I believe this is a sign that you should project your energies and your efforts towards this need for nourishment. And the long-term solution card is the ladder. Now, there are many ways to try and climb a ladder. However, if you've ever watched wrestling, you'll know that many of them are not safe or productive, and can even be harmful to yourself and those around you. So by all means, climb that ladder, but, be safe. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is the 6 of birdseed. Big Bird might see this as a delicious feast, and Bert, who loves pigeons, may see this as a way of offering support to those he loves. But go ask, Skeeter or Miss Piggy what they're going to do with 6 bags of birdseed. They're not even Big Bird's co-workers. Which is why I believe the white octagon is showing us a multifaceted, complicated task that your heart is just not into. It's important work that needs to be done, and there will always be people passionate about doing it. So it doesn't have to be you. So let's look to the long-term card, Mumford with a rabbit. Mumford loves being a magician, and he has the good fortune to have been built to be a magician. And so being a magician brings him joy. When we are hungry, that is a sign to seek food. A reminder that sometimes our desires are a form of guidance. You only get one life, and it's okay to fill it with magic. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is Rosita pointing to a rainbow. She looks like she wants to reach out and touch that rainbow. Perhaps in this read representing a beautiful ideal. So when we look to the short and long-term slots, we see the 10 of soccer balls and the 1 of teddy bears. She is asking them, how do you touch the rainbow? The soccer balls contain hexagons and pentagons, signs of life and mystery, respectively, and as such tend to represent the wide scope of life itself. Most of them are going to be like, well, rainbows are an illusion of light. You can't actually touch them. Meanwhile, the teddy bear's going to be like, well, I touched a rainbow yesterday, and here's how I did it. They say in matters of map-making, ask a cartographer. I believe this is a sign to seek out your peers, vet their experience, and if they've gotten what you wanted, value and carry their advice. Hey, while you're up on that rainbow, bring me back some Skittles. I appreciate you. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem is represented by the red triangle. I think this is a sign that you have a lot of sort of critical and passionately formed thoughts on the topic, and it is natural to want to share them. The short-term solution card is the 14 of bottle caps. Implied by this is that we had to open 14 bottles. I believe this is a sign that you should open yourself to a lot of new information, new viewpoints, new sources of nourishment. Perhaps a positive sign to educate yourself on the topic. Which leads us to the long-term solution card, the Count holding up the number 9. The Count is Sesame Street's foremost expert on the numbers and use thereof. Therefore, when he speaks from a place of authority and experience. And in order to speak from these things, you must first have them. So I think the signs are clear. Go open some bottles. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is the 5 of puppies. Gosh, those are some cute puppies. You'd probably do anything for those puppies, huh? Yeah, that's why it's a problem card. A sign to be cautious of emotional manipulation. Short-term solution is the Super Grover flying high. Super Grover usually only lands to solve a problem, and then he starts flying when the problem's solved. I believe this is a sign that their desire is not necessarily your problem to solve. But how can we know for sure? Well, let's take a look at the long-term solution card, the mail card. Mail is a method by which we may correspond from afar. Perhaps there is a method you can use to work out the bare minimum expectations, such as what they expect to gain from being reconnected with you, and what you would need to see from them to make it worth the effort. So I believe this is a sign to be open to the possibility, but do not be compelled into the situation against your best interests. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem card is represented by 2 boats, or 2 different journeys. Right now it looks like both boats are going in the same direction, but ultimately each boat set out with the intent of going where it wanted to go. So if they're not trying to get to the same place, they may in fact be drifting apart. However, I think it's fascinating that both your short and long-term solution cards are signs of cleansing. And furthermore, that as cleansing continues, we are no longer cleansing alone. And more importantly, with others that are sharing the same experience, and the same desire, and the same destination. Think of it this way. There are not a lot of things you get to choose for yourself in this journey, but your destination is one of them, and your crewmates are another. And if your journey is taking you someplace where your crewmates don't want to sail, well, there are plenty of sailors in the sea. Probably could have phrased that one better. But you get my point, right? The Sesamerot has spoken. Your problem card is the white square, which, among other things, represents sort of a default or a status quo. This may be a sign that you've been putting all your effort into surviving, but not thriving. Which, all things considered is fair. We've all been in survival mode for, years now? But the human condition craves growth, change, challenge. Which brings us to the lemonade card in the short-term solution slot. They say when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But what are you supposed to do with a bunch of lemonade if you're not particularly thirsty? But just because you're thirsty doesn't mean other people aren't. I believe this is a sign to take what life has given you and give it back to life. Better. And the long-term solution card is Mumford, holding an alligator. I believe this ties in with the lemonade card. When you think of magicians, you think of them pulling a rabbit, not an alligator. You have within you the potential to give the world an unexpected and sweet surprise. All you gotta do is think outside the box. The Sesamerot has spoken.